Tattooing, it's blood, it's pain, it's permanence. You can't just call it in.
Hey guys, welcome to the East West Podcast with your host, Horisumi. Today we're going to talk a little bit about something maybe slightly controversial to some people, not controversial to me, but here we are. So, one of the things that gets levied against Japanese tattooers from the West a lot is the idea of cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. Right, and it's, this is in all tattooing, This gets levied against Westerners that do Samoan tattooing or Maori tattooing or, whatever styles are going, right? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that, all right? I'm going to stick specifically to Japanese tattooing as that's my wheelhouse and my experience, so I can't speak to the other stuff, but we'll talk about Japanese tattooing. I was just in Japan, as you know, a couple weeks ago, doing the Sanjo Matsuri Festival with my Japanese friends, and great time, great experience. Really enjoyed being there with my family, and very accepting by everyone there. And so I post a lot of photos of that event on my social media. And one of the photos I posted of myself in Fundoshi with some of my Japanese friends and one of my friends holding my baby on the streets of Tokyo, showing off our tattoos. One of those photos went kind of viral, right? And, it went all around Instagram, and a lot of people that weren't my followers, so to speak, had access to the photos and they saw it. And look, the majority of people were super positive, they enjoyed the photos. But there was a small minority of people, loud voices from the peanut gallery, right? Screaming, look at the white guy over there, appropriating Japanese people's culture. Look at the white guy, look at the white guy, look at the white guy, right? And I was like, what the fuck is going on, right? Like, where is this idea coming from? And it was white people saying it was black people saying it, these accusations of cultural appropriation, right? And so that shit pisses me off, man. Tattooing has always been, I guess you would call it underworld culture, but it's always been a very sharing culture, and it's always been very, a lot of back and forth, right? For the people that don't understand the history of the Western Japanese Tattooing Alliance, I'll give you a little bit of a history lesson on it, right? I mean, Japan opened up to the West in 1853, right? And since then, Westerners have flocked to Japan to appreciate the culture, to partake in not just the food, but the rituals, the customs, the fashion, and just like Japanese people embraced a lot of Western stuff. You see these photos from the 1800s of Japanese people wearing top hats and suits and walking sticks, right? So there was a lot of back and forth, right? And there's always been this beautiful relationship between Japan and the West. Now, obviously, the diehard, nationalists on both sides of the spectrum have eschewed that and stuck to their own culture, right? But for us in the artistic tattoo world, we look at Japanese tattooing as breathtaking, right? It's the apex of what tattooing can be, the pinnacle of tattooing, right? It's got, from my point of view, it's got, power and strength and meaning, all these stories and the beauty and the aesthetics of it and the timelessness. You do a Japanese bodysuit or a Japanese back piece, and if it's done right, it looks as good today and makes as much sense, and it holds up 20, 30, 40 years from now. And that's one of the beauties of Japanese tattooing, is this timelessness, and to hear these people from the sidelines, from the, whether they're from a different culture, whether they're black or white or whatever, fucking cultural appropriation, right? You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And it just makes you look ignorant and stupid. And I've had it, I did a a lecture at the New South Wales Art Gallery some years back. And during the Q&A period after my lecture, there's, you know, some blue-haired dipshits fucking asking me about cultural appropriation and stuff. As if, you know, I'm doing something wrong, right? By doing Japanese tattoos, or by, you know, promoting Japanese tattooing or being involved in it somehow. You know, and I find that offensive, right? I find it offensive on several levels. A, is coming from a position of ignorance. And B, you're just being a dick for the sake of being a dick, right? I mean, the same voices that scream for diversity and inclusion in all aspects of life are the same ones saying, okay, well, we're going to diversify and include, right? You know, then they start screaming that you're a racist, a cultural appropriationist, you're a colonist, all this stuff. It's fucking retarded, right? So I'll give you a little history lesson on the relationship between from the American point of view. I'm not American, I'm Canadian by birth, I'm Australian now, and Japanese tattooing culture. In the 60s, you know, most American tattooing was tattoos this big. Maybe if someone was a hardcore sailor, they might get a big eagle on their chest or something big on their back like this big. Now at the same time in Japan, dudes were getting full bodysuits by hand, right? And they had been for over 100 years. Right? So when sailors would go to Japan, be in the port after the war, they'd see this stuff like a little bit here and there. Some of the firemen and the palanquin bearers and the workmen would have their shirts off, their kimonos down. And so the tattooing there was a big disparity between like what Americans were getting, which was stuff like this, right? Versus the Japanese, which had full bodysuits. So they were in awe of it, as they would be, right? So in the 60s, a tattooer from Gifu by the name of Gifu Horihide, his Japanese name is Kazuo Oguro, he and a tattooer from Hawaii named Sailor Jerry, which you might have heard of. He didn't just make the rum, he was actually a really famous tattooer in Hawaii. They made contact, became pen pals. And over the course of years, they shared a lot of information, and then Horihide came to Hawaii, and there was a massive cultural exchange. These two guys, right, Horihide and Sailor Jerry, changed the course of tattooing, Japanese tattooing in the world forever. Horihide gave Sailor Jerry a bunch of Japanese tattoo designs, stuff that the West had never seen before. And Sailor Jerry gave Horihide electric tattoo machines and American colors, which were superior to the Japanese colors at the time. And so this relationship kept on. And then Sailor Jerry introduced Don Ed Hardy, who didn't just make clothing, was also a very famous tattooer, to Horihide. And then Don Ed Hardy went to Japan and studied under Horihide. And so there was a lot of this cultural exchange, right? It was all, you know, it was all voluntary, let's say, right? It wasn't, no one was being appropriated or colonized, right? And so this was the beginning of this symbiotic relationship between the West and the East in terms of tattooing. Now, I've traveled a lot, tattooed all over the world, and I found this in every tattoo culture. Right? Tattooers love to share information and gather knowledge, right? Whether it's designs or techniques or pigments or tools, whatever, right? We're not looking at national borders and we're not hard fast in our cultural identity so much, right? Americans, you know, or Canadians or Australians, you know, we love Asian stuff, right? You know, I love Asian food, love, you know, many aesthetics about Asian culture, right? My wife is Asian, you know, and the Japanese also love Western stuff, right? So these claims of cultural appropriation and these things are like ridiculous, right? Like, now there's sushi restaurants all over the world, right? Obviously we love Japanese stuff, but there's other aspects of Japanese stuff that people don't know about. Like one of the best sword polishers in the world, definitely in Australia, who trained in Japan, won awards in Japan, is a white fella named Andrew. Now he did a 10-year apprenticeship on Japanese sword polishing. He won a very prestigious award in Japan with a sword polishing family, and now lives in Australia, right? Is he culturally appropriating, right? I mean, I was taught tabori by a Japanese tattoo master. I studied in Japan. My Japanese tattoo master friend came here, taught me more here, right? He tattooed in my shop. I tattooed in his shop. You know, this kind of stuff that goes on that people don't see, right? And so I made another video earlier that was a little more angry and a little more vitriol, but I've decided to take a different tact with this conversation, because for some people in the diversity and inclusion crowd, you know, you can't outshout them, right? So I'm not going to outshout you. I'm going to explain to you, right? Tattooing art knows no boundaries, right? Now, with Japanese tattooing, you know, I'm not going to be the most knowledgeable of everything because, you know, I'm not Japanese. I wasn't raised in Japan. A lot of the stuff I've had to seek out and learn and study, whereas, you know, a Japanese tattoo master has grown up in that culture and he's absorbed and internalized a lot of the stuff that I'll never understand, which is why I look to them for guidance. I look to my Japanese friends as mentors and for guidance, right? And I still exchange a lot of stuff with my friends. I send pigment to Japan to my Japanese tattoo friends, and they send me tools, or they will send me needles, right? There's an exchange there, right? And that is the beauty of tattooing, right? So this photo that I'll post it here that I put up of me and my friends and my daughter, you know, and to be attacked for this, right, was hilarious, right? But I have to address it. I have to address it because it's ignorant. And, you know, in a day and age when we're trying to all get along and appreciate everybody for who they are, it's good to spread the knowledge of why things are the way they are, right? So while I know I'm not Japanese, I can appreciate and partake in Japanese culture and Japanese tattooing. Some of the best guys in the world that do Japanese tattooing, you know, are in the West. There's a whole bunch of European tattooers who are fantastic, American tattooers that are fantastic at Japanese. And there's some, you know, the best are in Japan, right? So it's good to keep this in mind, that just because it appears that people are absorbing other people's cultures and stuff, it's not appropriation, it's appreciation. No different than my friend that polishes swords who's white, or the white guy that goes to Japan and does a sushi apprenticeship for 10 years and then comes back to Australia and opens a sushi restaurant and tries to be as authentic as possible, right? It's the same with tattooing, right? In Japan, they're very much open. If you do things the Japanese way and you go study with them and you honor their culture and you honor the way they do things and their processes and stuff, they're happy to share, just like we are, right? There's a big cultural exchange, right? So that's what I wanted to spread to you guys today, was about that. And to share that, you know, before you listen to someone talking shit, have a bit of a knowledge base on it so you can correct them, right? Because there's enough negativity towards tattooing everywhere without adding in claims of fucking colonialism and racism and all this shit. And it's always from the most ignorant people, right? Always. The people that have nothing going on in their lives, right? And the fucking blue-haired dipshits that want to be offended by everything. They want to be offended on behalf of the Japanese because I'm hanging out with Japanese people, right? So, absolutely fucking ridiculous. So this is my toned down version. I hope that explains some of this stuff. And if you have any questions or comments about it or anything, hit me up in the DMs in the comments and I'll certainly address them. I'm not going to stop tattooing Japanese stuff if you don't agree with me, but I'll listen to what you have to say, right? Because that's how we move forward, okay? Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you next time.